BBFC. View what's right for you.
Hello, my name's Sarah Peacock and I'm the Compliance and Education Manager at the British Board of Film Classification. I'm going to be talking to you today about the ways in which we classify different content issues in children's content. At the British Board of Film Classification, it's our job to classify all cinema releases and releases for home entertainment on physical media, as well as online. Our main goal at the British Board of Film Classification is to help families choose content well, to make sure that people have really positive viewing experiences. We feel like we do this in a variety of ways, including through our research, as well as through our ratings info, which we provide for everything that we classify. When it comes to research, our main research project that we do is our classification guidelines research. And we conduct this research every 4 to 5 years. This research is a large-scale public consultation where we talk to over 10,000 members of the public from all 4 nations. We talk to a really diverse group of people, including young people, teenagers are a large part of our sample. And the research is really our opportunity to check in with people across the UK to make sure that we're making age rating decisions on content that are in line with public opinion. So during the guidelines research, we will ask people to watch clips from content that could be film content or television content, and they will tell us what they think of it. Based on what they tell us, we will update our classification guidelines accordingly and then use the updated guidelines document to rate content for the next 4 to 5 years. So really, this document should reflect the latest in what people, particularly parents, are thinking when it comes to content issues. Reflecting the views of young people is really important in our work. We do this in a variety of ways, including through our guidelines research, any additional content research that we do in intervening periods between guidelines consultations, and also through our wider education and outreach work. Most recently, we've commissioned research into teenagers' attitudes towards viewing online, and also towards children and young people's viewing habits during the pandemic. As you'll see from the screen, 92% of teenagers told us that they watch films online. That's perhaps quite unsurprising. We did also find that 95% of teenagers want consistent age ratings online. From our research during children's viewing during the pandemic, we found that 47% of children in the UK saw content that they rather would have avoided during lockdown, and 51% of 16 to 15-year-olds decided to choose what they were watching without their discussing it with a parent first. These stats suggest that there really is a need for consistent online age ratings. When it comes to rating children's content, the most relevant age ratings are those that you see on the screen now. Hopefully they'll be really familiar to you, but just to get you a bit more information about them, our U age rating means universal, and anything that we rate U should be in principle suitable for all. However, we do suggest that we start off the U age rating for children as young as 4 years of age. Our PG age rating stands for parental guidance, and we benchmark this age rating for children around the age of 8 years of age. Both our 12A and our 12 age rating means that the content should be suitable for children of 12 years of age or over. However, our 12A age rating, which is for use in cinemas only, does enable parents or carers to make an informed choice about whether to take any children younger than the age of 12 to the cinema to go and see that particular film. Because even though we conduct lots and lots of research, we are aware that it's parents and carers that know their children best. One of the most common areas of our work that I get asked about is how we classify language, particularly at the junior age ratings. So hopefully today I'm going to show you a few clips to demonstrate the ways in which we classify language, particularly at U and PG. When it comes to rating language, our guidelines say at U that any content rated U should only contain infrequent, very mild bad language. And when it comes to our PG age rating, our guidelines say that you might hear mild bad language, but if any of that language is used in an aggressive manner or there's very frequent use of mild bad language, then it could result in a higher age rating. In May 2021, we published the findings from our latest research. The research looked at attitudes towards language in film and media content. One of the key findings for us was that parents do not want an increased use of strong language in media content. Some of the key stats that we got from the research are as follows. 1 in 5 parents swear in front of their children under the age of 16, and 6 in 10 agree using strong language as part of their daily life. 30% admitted that they use strong language more frequently compared to 5 years ago. And when it comes to the generational divide, 46% of Gen Zs frequently use strong language daily, whereas only 12% admitted to using strong language daily of those aged between 55 and 64. However, we did find some really key information about general attitudes towards swearing, even at the lower age ratings. And our key finding was that parents do not want to see an increase in the use of strong language or bad language in any media content. So while there was a general acceptance that in everyday lifestyles, the use of language, bad language or swearing is slightly more common than perhaps it used to be, there was still a really clear appetite from parents in particular for us as regulators to act as a gatekeeper in order to try and protect children from hearing the strongest or most offensive terms. In order to demonstrate the type of language that you might find in a piece of children's content rated U, I've got a clip here from SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob, I was just kidding. Come on, you guys know I was just kidding, right?
Oh man, poor kid.
That guy has definitely got some issues to work out.
April Fools, jerk.
Wait, don't go!
In the clip, you can hear the word jerk is used, and that's a term that we consider to be very mild bad language. Other terms that you might hear at U are noted on the slide here. One of the most interesting aspects of language at U is the term screw, and that could be a word that may take a piece of content up to PG depending on the way in which the term is used. It all depends on context. You'll probably hear me say that word quite a lot when we're talking about the other clips, but it's kind of worth saying that even though we do have a general guide as to what certain terms are likely to be acceptable at any of our age ratings, it all does depend on context and the way in which it's used. And that was very much one of the findings from our language research that we published earlier this year. It was that parents particularly told us that it was the way in which words are used that is more of a concern rather than what the actual words are themselves. So our PG clip is from Dragon Ball Z Super.
Whoa, is he allowed to do that, Whis?
So you're still not ready to give up? Then let's see if you can handle this, Mario!
Wait a second, he's distracted. It's the perfect time to steal. Steal what?
You lost focus.
I've got you now, Vegeta.
No son of a bitch!
And that's an out.
So I know the clip's kind of got other issues going on because it's got issues of threat and violence, but when it comes specifically to the language, the use in this clip is a use of the term son of a bitch. So it's quite an interesting clip because it is sort of said in a way that's quite powerful. It's got quite a lot of energy behind it in terms of its delivery. But for us, we wouldn't consider this to be a really aggressive use. It's not really accompanied by violence because they're sort of dueling in the TV content that we're watching here. And, you know, it's an isolated use in that episode. So for us, it's quite a comfortable PG use of the term. You'll see on the screen, there's some other terms here that you would likely to find at PG. But again, context is always key, as with anything. One of the most interesting areas of the language research was to do with how we rate acronyms. And we've never really consulted with parents on this issue before. It's sort of a first for us. So as part of the research, we did ask people to look at clips which included acronyms such as those that you see on screen now. And the main finding, particularly from parents, was that, you know, they understand that their children are probably going to know what the F stands for in these terms. And so they were much more comfortable with us passing these at the 12A level rather than at a U or a PG. However, there was some acceptance that maybe in particular contexts we could have scope to pass it at the PG age rating. So in particular, if a use is quite discreet, it's quite obscure on screen, perhaps it's a written use, there's no attention drawn to it, it's not really used in an aggressive or directed manner, then we might be able to pass it at PG. But now you're more likely to hear these acronyms at the 12A level. Another content issue that I thought might be quite interesting to talk to you briefly about today is around how we classify violence. So again, if we refer to our classification guidelines, we say that at U, any content, the violence should be very mild. So we may allow mild violence if it's justified by context. So what we mean by that is if the context is comedic, if it's animated, if it's in a really unrealistic fantasy setting, you know, we might be able to allow slightly stronger, more detailed bits of violence at U in those particular scenarios. At PG, we do say that generally violence will be quite mild. However, you could have moderate violence without detail. So by that we mean, you know, without blood or injury detail. If it's justified by context, and the context that we're sort of citing there are historical context, a comedy context, or a fantasy context. So the clip I have to demonstrate U-level violence is from a series called Dino Trucks.
I'm looking forward to nothing more than a nice, quiet afternoon.
Doesn't look like that's gonna go your way, Click Clack. Look out!
Pterocopters! I've always wanted to see them fly.
I think you're gonna see him crash first. Find cover! Get to the garage!
Time! Up top!
I always knew it would end like this.
Everyone okay?
Yes. Somehow we are all intact.
Not sure we'll be able to say the same for the pterocopters.
The violence, the scene as a whole is generally quite prolonged, and it is at times quite intense. It's quite a loud scene. There's a lot of like banging and crashing. So this is definitely what I would consider mild violence rather than very mild violence. And if you remember from the previous slide, we do say that at U you can have that if there are certain contextual factors at play, and those include fantasy, comedy, and animation, which kind of are all at play in that scene. I think as well what's also mitigating for us, so another factor that would enable us to pass it at U, is the fact that, you know, the characters are clearly not human. They're clearly made of metal, so they're quite indestructible. We're assuming that children are going to be able to understand that they're not really going to be able to get hurt, or it's going to take a lot to hurt these characters. So while there is some detail there, you know, I'm thinking particularly when that shard of metal drops on the ground, by and large, there's enough contextual mitigations on offer in this scene for us to kind of defend it at the U level. To demonstrate PG level violence in children's content, I've got quite an interesting clip from Horrible Histories.
The Axe Factor.
It's not just about chopping people's heads off. There's all sorts of skills required in the job. There's hanging people, dropping people in boiling oil, chopping the limbs off, and then, of course, you got the slitting people open, watching the stomachs fall out.
Right, you're out!
Oh, please, sir. I've got so much more to give.
God, I didn't even mention pulling people's lungs out. Oi, watch me shoes! Vamos!
What's interesting about this clip is that there's no actual on-screen violence. It's mostly just references to violence. And I thought you might be interested to know that we do classify just verbal references in very similar way to actual visual depictions of violence on screen. So we would take into account level of detail and whether sort of the descriptions are quite gratuitous or not. And so thinking about that in the context of this clip, you know, it's quite interesting that there is a lot of detail in these references. It really is quite gruesome. There's a lot of descriptions of torture, but it's by and large without any injury detail whatsoever. It's obviously hugely comic and quite silly in tone. And we can't sort of mention horrible histories, as with so many other children's content, is that it's got such strong educational value. So while the references are quite gruesome, we do think that the educational value really outweighs any possibility that any child could be upset by those references. We're also really aware that children quite like a bit of guts and gore, and Horrible Histories is such a known franchise to audiences now, from the books, and obviously it's quite a long-running TV show and there's a film, that this idea of audience expectation really comes into play, including from parents and children alike. So on balance, we're quite comfortable with these types of references at PG in a horrible histories context. But, you know, if this was in a drama, we might not be thinking about PG anymore. So thank you so much for watching our presentation today. I really hope you found it interesting. It really was a whistle-stop tour. So if you want to find out absolutely anything else about the BBFC, please do check out our website. We've got lots of information on there about the ways in which we classify content and sort of more general information about the BBFC. I'd also encourage you to check out our Instagram, our Twitter, or our Facebook page. And if you have any questions that specifically you want us to ask, please do look at our Contact Us page on the website, and you can drop us an email. But thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.